Speaking of soy milk, let's talk about these crazy environmentalists, these mental environmentalists, if we want to have a play on words there, who are going around all these different areas and just terrorizing people and making a mess. You're making a mess, and I'm going to need you to stop. I'm going to call your mommy, and she's going to make you clean it up. I don't know what's going on, but this has been going on for a while. We spoke about the guy from Secession. I don't know if you guys watched that show. It's an HBO show. The guy, James Cromwell, who's also from like Babe and a few other very popular films and shows. When he superglued his hand to a Starbucks counter in protest of them not having or like charging more for their vegan milk options.
Yeah.
Which was so weird.
Which is like basic economics. Vegan milk's more expensive.
Right. It takes more to create and manufacture. He super glues his hand to a Starbucks counter and starts complaining about vegan milk costing more because he's doing more for the environment and blah, 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 blah. And now we have these milk pours that are currently happening apparently across the United Kingdom with individuals calling out the government to give them a livable future and a hashtag plant-based future. Let's take a look at this video. 13.3 million views.
It is responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than the oil giants like Exxon, Shell, and BP. The top 4 dairy companies are responsible for...
I don't even care what she's saying. We're just going to talk over it because she doesn't deserve... I know. We should mute it, actually. Let's just mute it and show them pouring out the milk. These people do not deserve to have whatever message it is that they're trying to portray spoken out into the ether. So we're just going to watch as this girl pours out milk, which is so counterproductive to your original mission, because then it's just like, yo, we're going to have to replace that milk.
Right. We're going to need more milk after
We're going to need
People
more
are still
milk.
gonna buy it.
The store's going to be like, I got to place a double order of the milk that we placed last week because this stupid biatch just came and poured the milk all over the aisle.
Oh my
gosh.
Look, you made a good point that, we should support free speech, but I'm anti-free speech for these people. So you got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, no, me and Taylor were in Minnesota watching these videos, and Taylor's like, we should sentence them to jail.
Yes.
And I'm
just
like,
straight to jail.
You can't put them in jail, Taylor. If all things go in the horrible direction that they are going in a lot of ways now, we might have to be pouring out milk in protest one day. But it's going to be soy milk. It's going to be the soy milk.
Okay, if you pour out the soy milk, then that's okay. Yeah, you have my approval. No jail for you.
We're going to stage a similar protest where we go and start pouring out the soy milk.
Yeah, the soy and vegan milk.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Look, and there's also the element of like you're destroying property.
Yeah.
That's vandalism. You're shutting down a part of this grocery store, presumably, and they're losing out on business. So I do hope that at least the grocery store sues them and they can get some sort of damages and be punished to the full extent of the law.
Yes.
And I am pro passing laws that are very harshly punished
Bring
this kind
down
of
the
activism
hammer.
because I hate it so much.
He does.
Everyone
hate it
hates
so
this.
much. Everyone hates. Even left-leaning people
Yeah.
are like, guys, what the hell are you doing? Like, why would you do that? It's not the way to get your message across. It's certainly not the people you want to be targeting. Like, you don't know who owns the grocery store, who this is going to affect, and it's simply just so they can get a video that's symbolic of how their hearts and minds feel. And you'll notice it's almost always little 20-somethings, except for James Cromwell, who's just an old, crotchety, crazy old man.
Yeah.
Crazy old Maurice. That's how I feel about him. Even though Maurice is really cool from Beauty and the Beast. I don't know if you got that reference, Taylor.
No, I did not.
Shame. It's a shame.
It's been a while.
But yeah, you're pouring milk out in a grocery store. It's not accomplishing anything other than making your video viral. And it's not viral because people are hearing your message. This is where they get confused. They're like, oh, 13 million people are now going to care about where we source our milk from. And it's like, no, 13 million people are being demeaning to you because you're being stupid.
Right. It reminds me of that, I think his name's Dash or whatever, like who does the like political rants and he's got the camera super close to his face and he's got like a real interesting looking face and he goes on these like really angry, like crazy looking rants. And it's like, dude, people watch these because of how silly you look,
right?
Not because they care about your message.
Not because they're cheering you on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this type of activism, it's like performative. It's about, it's like, look at me. Caring about this issue. Look at me
Yeah. Me.
Caring about the issue. Yeah. You know that issue? I care about it a lot. And it's to make themselves feel like they're doing something grandiose, which, by the way, they're sitting there talking about, I heard they mentioned something about emissions and how milk has more emissions than soy milk or whatever that they're supporting. And it's like, if you're worried about emissions, do you support nuclear? That's my first question.
Right.
Because that's and I guarantee you that these people have no frame of reference for how to actually fight this battle and do so effective climate solutions. They just are concerned about virtue signaling and making much of themselves and their activism and not finding the rational, logical solutions to the issues.
They just care about being little kids who are throwing a tantrum. It's just tantrum culture. It really is. It's like the people who were running around in I think San Francisco slashing people's tires in the name of the car industry and saying this commentary on oil and gas. It's you do realize I'm going to have to replace those tires, right? And the creation of tires is going to emit more chemicals into the air. So for every tire that you slashed, you actually harmed the environment. I mean, so stupid. Here's another one in London, and London seems to be just a hotbed for this stuff. This is an environmentalist protester who demands an end of oil and fossil fuels by vandalizing an Aston Martin luxury car dealership in Mayfair. Genius.
Hero.
What? Yeah, hero. This alone has stopped the usage of oil and gas. They saw this and they want, well, now that I've seen that, gosh, we're going to stop doing that. Of course. You know what? I just want to see somebody I just want to see a 6'4", 280-pound UFC fighter just come out and just tackle him to the ground. I would love it.
That would be very satisfying. We kind of got to see that.
Satisfying.
Remember a couple of weeks ago, some Yahoo did this during an NFL game and ran across the NFL field with a pink smoke or something. Yeah. And the NFL player tackled him and you were like, yes! It was the most satisfying
Exactly.
feeling.
It is satisfying. I want Derek Lewis to come out of this Aston Martin and just
drop a hammer.
Drop him down. And again, you know how many chemicals and just water it's going to take to clean this off of the Aston Martin building? You are harming the environment. Oh my goodness.
He's providing more labor opportunities for low-income workers to wash this off, so it's all justified, right?
Yeah, it's so and these are the people they claim to care about. We care about the people who are working for low income. Okay, dude. Well, you just got somebody who's getting paid probably $12 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is in London. Now they're going to have to come and hop on a ladder and clean up the orange paint that you threw up there. You're really doing something for the working man.
Yeah, you remember that viral video last year of the guy who, with the interstate that he was driving on was being blocked by a bunch of activists, and he was like, if I'm late to work again, they're going to call my parole officer and I'm going to have to go back to jail. And they're like, we're doing this for you. We're doing this for the people. It's dude, you're going to send this guy back to jail for your stupid performance. Instead, you've totally lost the plot.
Dude, and then the guy with the parole officer gets arrested. Not the environmentalist. The guy who's I need to get through. I need to get on the freeway to get to work. He's the one who gets arrested. Blows my mind. Jail.
And someone in the chat's asking, well, how do you recommend that they express their free speech?
Without vandalism? It's against the law. This is not covered by free speech. And I don't want to sound like I'm angry at the person who asked that question, because that's a valid question to ask. You don't vandalize. It is it's already against the law.
It's BLM riots all over again.
It is BLM riots all over again. We're angry. Therefore, we get to break down businesses and kill people in the streets and riot and loot and burn stuff down because we have a message to put out to the world. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that your message meant more than mine did. I didn't realize that your message means we get to burn down buildings and literally kill people. It doesn't. We're pretty much all functioning within an equal society, and there's not a group of people, because they feel so virtuous and wonderful like they're saving the earth, that gets to vandalize people's businesses and create just so many more problems without actually addressing the problem that they care about.
Throwing soup on the Mona Lisa is the language of the unheard. Right.
Well, this was cake on the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, that's right.
Soup on the Van Gogh, here's another one. Soup on the Van Gogh. Security. John Oliver's in the background calling for security.
Someone.
Let's hear that again.
Security. Can we just, we got to acknowledge the pink hair here.
We have to, you can't not leave that. Also, just the thought of putting super glue on my fingers and then smacking them on a wall makes me want to, I don't know, hit my head against a desk. Sounds horrible. Sounds absolutely horrible.
Look, call me harsh. I think if you super glue your hand to something, it should be within the rights of law enforcement or the person whose property that you're desecrating, whose business you're interfering with and shutting down, to rip your hand right off. And
oh my gosh, Taylor, the imagery.
I'm
It
sorry.
sounds so painful. Yeah, I looked up. I'm like, what do they do when somebody super glues their hand to something? How do they get that off? And apparently they use like industrial strength, like a super glue dissolver or something, and they have to.
Who has to go and get that?
I guess a police officer has to like gently rub it on your
So
hands.
my tax dollars have to pay for some super glue remover and then
Right.
a cop to take their time to go find it and bring it in. And,
Yep.
and it's like, dude,
That's exactly right.
unacceptable, bro.
While soup is on
Jail.
the van go, it's like I'm not understanding the thought. I get throwing paint on an Aston Martin dealership. Okay, at least that's like a direct correlation to oil and gas. This is an oil protest, and I guess they're throwing it on van. You said it's an oil painting. Is that why they chose?
I saw a
to do
tweet
it?
that said, yeah, it's an oil painting, so we're protesting oil.
How much of a dipstick do you have to be to do that? And it makes no sense. Just like possibly harm, because these are obviously covered with glass and things like that, to harm the painting of a tortured artist and just throw that on there with a complete disregard for everybody who's around you and super glue your hand to a wall. It's just, why?
Look, they
Who
used to
are
cut
you?
the hands off of thieves. I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but like, this
Taylor's-
cannot continue. I'm
Taylor's
so angry.
becoming an authoritarian
Yeah.
dictator, all because of these environmentalist protesters.
Look, I also think, last thought on this, we should definitely have some sort of like agreement that you should not voice the causes or like, it's like how we have mass shooters, like the media should not name them.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people do stuff like this, the media should just not be able to say what their cause was or give any voice to what they were trying to protest for.
It's great because this video cuts off right when she's about to talk.
That's
She like
great.
sticks it. She goes like this, and then she gives her.
That's really satisfying. Like, and the reason I did this was, well, that's all we got, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen.
And it goes viral. That is very satisfying. But I'm sure there's a video that exists somewhere where people are actually giving voice to what she has to say. And to that I say, I'm iffy on it, because I watch these people protest and I'm like, that's stupid. I don't care what you have to say. But you have to anticipate a future where that could be you in that position. Obviously not protesting oil and throwing soup on paintings, but what's a form of protest that we would see as necessary to get a message across if somebody came into our space and created problems for us that required protesting?
Yeah, you got to be prepared for the consequences. But the idea is that, if you're staging a protest against something, if you're driven to that point, like I think about the Dutch farmers or the Canadian truck drivers, you're prepared to accept the consequences, but B, like reason and reasonability is on your side.
Sure.
And in this case, these people are not on the
Being
side of
reasonable.
like thoroughly well thought out arguments and being thoughtful. It's hysteria and
Yeah.
performative activism, and I think that's where you can draw a distinction.
Fair enough. Taylor
People
says
who
put
agree
them
with
in
me are
jail.
right.
Taylor says put them in jail. That's where you get into the muddy waters of who gets to decide what's reasonable when it comes to protests and who gets to decide, what is logical and what forms of protest are acceptable and for what cause. So that's why they're not necessarily allowed to do these things because, like we said, it is vandalism, it is breaking the law. But they're allowed to protest and voice their opinions surrounding oil and gas and all that fun stuff. And that's where we'll leave it with the mental environmentalists. I will say, the whole background of the environmentalist movement and the whole climate change movement and all the hysteria is people on the opposition looking at them and saying, you're crazy and you're You're being like sort of a doomsdayer. You're hysterical about something that is not around the corner, and you're telling me it's around the corner. If you wanted to convince people that you weren't crazy, is pouring milk in the supermarket and throwing soup at paintings and painting Aston Martin dealerships, is that the way that you convince people that you're not crazy? Is that how people truly are going to wake up and go, you know what? I was wrong. You actually were right about climate change, and I actually do feel like it's around the corner. No, you look even crazier. It just continues to validate what people already think about you.
Yeah.
It's so counterproductive to your cause.
And to that point, like I'm thinking of like anti-mandate protests and stuff like that. Like I don't recall seeing people like spilling a bunch of needles all out over the sidewalks and
I don't know,
shutting down hospitals and stuff like that.
Well,
or vandalizing hospitals.
You could argue that like the Freedom Convoy and the convoys that happened in Canada blocked off streets and blocked off people's access to certain places. And, I think in the Netherlands, they were leaving manure outside of their representatives' buildings and things like that. So there is a certain amount of equal play happening on both sides. I would say maybe they're a little bit more civil-minded. I would say definitely probably they're more civil-minded on our side of the spectrum, but I think you could find examples of them not doing that. So for those cases, it becomes, well, what you gonna say? But I also would not be the one to be throwing manure outside representatives' buildings either.
That's true.
So everything in with nuance, but
I did a poll real quick. Sorry. Jail for this type of protester. 87% say yes, 13 no.
Oh my gosh.
Y'all are a bunch of totalitarians.
You guys are a bunch of dictators. I will say, I was talking to my boyfriend the other day because we were watching this show on Netflix called I Am a Killer, and I watched these, and I just said to him, I could never be a judge. And he's like, why could you never be a judge? It's like, I would just punish everybody to the fullest extent of the law all the time.